So if you're making an exploration-focused game, you're bound to have a lot of walking around that the player has to do. And you are going to hear the pitter-patter of little footsteps all the way through, except maybe your game sounds more like this. No footsteps. But there's actually a pretty easy way to set up footsteps in Unity. We're going to write a script called Footstep Manager. To start off with, we're going to need some member variables. First thing we need is an audio clip, and that is just a WAV file or an MP3 file. It's a file that has the audio that we want to play. We'll call it step sound. Going to add the volume so we can adjust the volume that we want the sound effects to play back at, and I'm going to set it up at a range between 0 and 1. And that'll make it so that in the inspector you can only give it a value between 0 and 1, no higher or lower. We also need an audio source. An audio source is a component that you put on a game object so that when you play a clip, the sound of simulation knows which object that the sound is emitted from. So that means we need to have an audio source attached to our player character. So in our script, we need to get a reference to the audio source component. So I'm going to use the method called getComponent, and with the audio source as the type. Then using the volume variable that we set up, I'm going to set the volume of the audio source to that number. And just to make sure that there actually is an audio source attached to our character, I'm going to add an attribute to tell the script that the audio source is a required component. Now I'm going to add a public method to actually play the footstep. We'll just call it footstep. And all we're doing here is we're using the audio source to play our audio clip using play one shot. So that means it's just going to play the clip once. So now we have a script that just plays a sound, but how do we synchronize this sound to the character's footsteps? How do we make it so that the script is triggered whenever the character steps? So I actually got my character's walking animation from an asset store package full of animations. So I'm going to go down and find the walk animation that's part of this. I'm going to change the import settings, or it imports the animation. I'm going to scroll down to where the animation events are, and I'm going to add an animation event. So using the slider, I can slide back and forth through the animation. And that way I can find just the exact moment where the foot touches the ground. And that's where I add a animation event. And I give it the exact same name as the public method in our script. So as long as the animator and the script are both on the same object, whenever this event occurs, it will call that method automatically. I'm going to add another event for when the left foot touches the ground, and I'm just going to name it the exact same thing. So I've attached the footstep manager to our character, and for the step sound, I'm going to drag one of these sound effects from the project into there, and you can also see I can adjust the volume here. The inspector made a little slider that I can just pull up and down. If we look up a little bit higher on the screen, you can also see that we have an animator component attached to the same object, which if you recall is one of our required components. So that's all good. Let's see what happens. So our script works okay, but it sounds like a game from the early 2000s because it just keeps playing the same exact step sound effect over and over again, which is kind of weird. So I'm going to make a simple modification to our script. The first thing I'm going to do is for the audio clip, I'm going to add brackets so that instead of just one audio clip, it's going to be an array of audio clips. Now I'm going to modify our call to play one shot so that instead of just playing an audio clip, it's going to play a random selection from our array of audio clips. Now you can see in the same component in the inspector, instead of a slot for an audio clip, there's just a thing that says list is empty. So I'm going to change the size from 0 to 8. So now I have 8 slots instead of just 1. And we happen to have 8 different footstep sound effects, so I can put a different one in each slot. So every step it'll play one of these at random. We'll see if that sounds more natural. Alright, that sounds better to me. Now we're really walking here. Later on we can modify the script to play different sound effects whether you're walking on wood or ground or a puddle or whatever, but I think this is a pretty good start for right now.